On this episode, we talk about customer acquisition channels, lookalike audiences on Facebook, and how to get feedback from your customers. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 34 of the AskEngine show.
Hey.
Oh, I thought you were laughing.
No, I wasn't laughing at you.
We're excited to kick off another fantastic week here at Engine. I think we are, how close are we to like launch and like all, woo?
I mean, it'll be in March. It'll be in March that we can show off what we're doing and have stores on it. So
Nice.
I'm ready.
One month away from now. We've also got Alexa Skill launching this Sunday
night.
So we'll post more about that. But we've got 3 questions for you today. We know that y'all are here for answers, not for our musings. So we'll jump in.
First question from Quora. This user asks, what are the top 10 e-commerce lead gen platforms? So I think they're asking about like what are the main sources of traffic for
Customer acquisition, traffic. Yeah.
For e-commerce.
Okay, so Google,
Facebook.
Instagram,
which is Facebook.
Sometimes Pinterest.
YouTube. Yeah. Pinterest, I guess, now makes the top 5. Snapchat would be emerging.
Oh,
it's gonna be there.
Their platform is. I was talking to a guy this weekend, Brandon, and we were talking about Snapchat just released a Pixel about 5 months ago, and it's so difficult to use.
I agree.
From a marketing perspective, anything above like event activation or just top of level awareness, unless you're a Maybelline, which is actually they did a Twitter poll and 81% of their users said don't worry about Snapchat anymore.
Well, in the early days of Instagram, and then in the early days of Pinterest, and the early days there of Snapchat, you see like demographic. You can target by country and you can target by male, female. That's about as deep as the demographics go. So. But go ahead.
What about LinkedIn for like SaaS companies?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not an e-com's tough on that unless you're like selling a very particular thing that can be defined by job titles, and if so, LinkedIn's got a ton of traffic. I mean, you're looking at the biggest of the big here. Pinterest is even in some cases too small to drive more than a few $1,000s of incremental revenue at this point.
If your audience is on Pinterest, you know it.
Yeah, exactly. You probably already know it, and you're probably already organically kind of seeing the jumps from. I mean, that's kind of your Etsy crowd, kind of your But yeah, it's in order, I would say, and help me with the order if I mess it up. So I would say today, it is Google number 1 by a mile still, Facebook number 2 by a mile still, Instagram is right there. For some things, Instagram even outranks Facebook. Fourth, I would put YouTube. I think, and probably only solely because I saw what Dollar Shave Club was able to do there. There's a few others that have tried, but YouTube there. Fourth. Fifth, I would say Pinterest. Sixth, I would say LinkedIn. Seventh, I would say Snapchat. And then I would leave the bottom blank. Yeah, I mean, where do you put Amazon in this list, though? I mean, if you look at off-platform, I would put Amazon a distant 5th or 6th. If you put on-platform and you're selling on Amazon, Amazon may even beat the top 3 or 4 or 5 that we put in there.
I mean, Amazon for I think it's branded searches is like 1 out of every 5 searches on the internet now starts with Amazon. So I think if you're in that market, I mean, Amazon SEO is a very real thing.
It is.
And so,
we've got 3 companies, we're in Walmart land here in Northwest Arkansas, a few miles from Bentonville's Walmart headquarters. We've got 3 companies that I know of or work in our area that are working on Amazon SEO, and that's just nuts to see that. So, I mean, maybe we rejigger it and say Google first, Facebook, Instagram second, and Amazon third,
depending on the product.
and maybe first depending on the product. I don't know. That's just shooting from the hip. I don't buy top 10 lists. It's whatever works for your business, right?
Yeah, and I think to nip this in, I think a lot of it depends on the vertical in which you're selling in. I mean, if you're a fashion company, you're going to be very Instagram heavy. If you're a SaaS product, you may not be. So I think a lot of it is the demographics that you're targeting and the ability for you to create content native to the platform, which platform excels. I mean, I personally know of a swimwear company that doesn't, like, their Facebook page has like 3,000 followers on it because they spend no time on it because they're so Instagram heavy.
It's Instagram. Yeah, I think if you look at Lauren James, we had Lance and Lauren in. I mean, they're definitely Instagram heavy. And it brings up another point, which we won't talk about. This is a future question, future show, but startups need one channel. right? You only need one channel to really figure out. Yeah, once you hit critical mass on that channel, then you need a second, third, or fourth. So rather than figure out what your strategy is on all 7 of those, I would rather you spend time figuring out which one of those to build your real customer acquisition strategy. All right, we've beaten this one to death.
That's John's tagline.
There you go.
We're on to the next one.
Yes, there we go.
Question 2 from Ivy Kiwi on Reddit. They're asking us, I'm getting plenty of traffic from Instagram. What should I do, or when should I set up a lookalike audience? Aww. So, some context. This user has a Shopify merchandise store. They started 2 weeks ago, and they've been working with a Instagram influencer page with 60,000 followers. So now they're trying to figure out, when do I set up my lookalike audience to retarget off of all those people?
Yeah, great question. So just from a mechanical standpoint, you can't create a lookalike with less than 100 entries of whatever you're targeting it. So 100 emails, 100 event triggers, things of that nature. I'm going to twist this question a little bit. I remember them posting they've had 70 view contents or 70 add to carts. When you're creating lookalike audiences, you really want to focus on high value lookalike audiences, because ultimately what you're doing is you're creating a cold audience from a specific subset of the traffic that's hitting your website. When you're focused on creating lookalike audiences on view contents, add to carts, things of that nature, those are not people who have purchased or intend to purchase at that point in time. So when you're creating a lookalike audience of people that are adding to cart, and always split test this, but I'd much rather create a high value lookalike audience of someone who is in the top 25% spent time on my website, or customers who have spent over $100, AOV on my website. There's ways to create much higher value lookalike audiences that you want to use for your seed audiences, because it's ultimately it's a cold audience. So if you're adding a bunch of people who have viewed content, you're going to be bringing in a lot of people who may be window shoppers. I mean, Facebook is very good, but they're also very specific about the targeting that you're giving them. So if I'm trying to go after and I'm telling Facebook, I want 2.1 million people who look like this audience who viewed who viewed content, that may not be an audience that I specifically want to target. So when you're creating lookalikes, you need to focus on lower down into the funnel. People who have purchased, people who have purchased more than twice, people who have a high AOV, people who, that's the type of lookalike audiences that you really need to be targeting.
Where's the critical mass there? So if he's only got 70 content looks, clearly that's where he's going to start. Needs to get that to maybe 700 for it to matter. And then you're going to want to switch that immediately as soon as you have over 100 or 200 or whatever the number is to add to cart. And then when you have 200 purchases, switch to that. And then we have 200 high dollar purchases, switch to that. Tell us about how that works.
Yeah, so with e-commerce companies at scale, I don't create a lookalike audience with less than 1,000 of the people that I want.
Okay.
Just because it's 10x what Facebook requires. The more data you can feed Facebook, the better targeting. It's a machine. Facebook is one of the best platforms at being that machine. So focus on as much data as you can put through. Now, if you're not an e-commerce company at scale, you may not have 1,000 people who have an AOV higher than $200. So go to the next best thing.
Well, if you're let's say you do go down that trajectory and your 1% lookalike audience doesn't work, you don't have a business. Because the 1% lookalike is, to me, the greatest, other than a very specific keyword phrase, buy widget X now. If you can't convert that on Google, you don't have a business for sure. But then the next kind of litmus test is, will that 1%, let's say you figure out how to get 200 customers and they're good AOV, if that 1% Facebook audience doesn't buy, boy, you need to kind of re-examine what you're doing, I think, because it's probably the same.
Or the platform in which you're working on. Like, it may mean, try out Instagram, do something different.
And I'm saying this to provoke action and thought. I don't know that I necessarily believe that, but that's the question I'd ask myself is whoa, the 1% Facebook isn't working? Because that's it always works.
Well, and it's also how you're messaging that 1%. A lot of people treat lookalike audiences as warm audiences. They're not.
They're not.
It's I've got John. I want to go find 1,000 more Johns. But how you nurtured and spoke to John, how Trunk Club got to him wasn't through, hey, buy my stuff. It was nurturing.
Right. If that 1% doesn't look, you either have a problem with your product / website, or you have a problem, like you say, and that's more likely because you've got 200, 300, 1,000 people that have bought from you. If the 1% doesn't look, I would really, really look at how you're messaging and trying to warm that audience rather than trying to necessarily convert them. So, all right.
Have we beaten this one?
No, that was a good question. We could talk on this one for hours. So what's next, though?
Yeah, last question from r/marketing. This user's wanting to know the simplest way to collect customer feedback. and they don't want to use email surveys or website pop-ups that usually get ignored. So
yeah, they don't get ignored.
If they're a digital product, I would say look at a chat service that comes up in specific areas of your product. So in the admin, when somebody is at a certain piece that you're wanting feedback on, gently nudge them there and ask them what they think about what they're doing, what they're working on. Mm-hmm. If it's a physical product, I like inbox things and calls to action, and
that's a good one.
Post this on Instagram or lead a review for XYZ product. Yeah. I like that.
So email feedback does not get ignored. So if you make it as part of your post-purchase flow, those emails, like your order, thank you for placing your order. Your order has been shipped. A question about your order. Those emails get opened 60 to 90% of the time. And the conversion rate on the content in there is incredible. So to me, it's post-purchase behavior, asking for customer feedback, and then rewarding that feedback is a great way to generate additional sales in addition to the feedback, right?
Well, and I think what's key too is the timing on that leave a review email. You want to make sure if you're not tied into like UPS or USPS's API and can trigger that when it's delivered, you want to wait a week after it's supposed to be there. Because otherwise, if they get a review and the product's not there, that's going to be a customer service phone call on, hey, did this get delivered or not? Am I missing the product? So,
well, let's say 24 or 48 hours after the thing comes through, you say, hey, we saw that your order was delivered. Tell us what you think. And then imagine what they do then. They click a button, go to your website, right? And then complete a very clickable NPS-like Net Promoter Score type survey, and then afterwards give them a discount or something. Thank you for doing this. Buy now today. And that's a huge one. If you look at the old direct mail data, the best time to market to somebody was in box. So they get the package, they open it, they like it, buy now. They'll go buy now. So it's a great way to increase lifetime value. Same with this email strategy we just described.
Yeah, and I'll also say one more thing is like, offering someone a direct discount, is definitely a great strategy. One thing I would split test that against, one thing I would split test that against is offering people insights into the company itself. So you've just bought a product, you've just bought a Samsung phone. Now, can you join our group and help us dictate what needs to be in the next Samsung group? Give them access. Because when you grant someone access, it may not always be a discount. It may not always be something that you're giving that is a direct, like monetary compensation. It may be come learn more about us as a company. Help us as a company deliver the next wow experience to you.
Well, that was a shameless plug. I mean, that post-purchase flow that we described is one of several dozen that we're building into the core of Engine, right? So after a customer purchases, we've got 20 years of benchmark data to say this is what you ought to do, and the A/B testing part of that. It's a discount for company A and probably B, C, D, E, and F, but company G may benefit from not offering a discount and instead going a different route. So off the shelf, once you set up your Engine store, a lot of these flows will be in there. So how you get these reviews and everything. So give us another month and we'll get that out, and you'll be able to play with it and kind of see what we think the best practices ought to be. So.
Perfect. Question of the day: email flows. Let's talk about. I think that there was kind of a gross overassumption in that last question of nobody answers email. What gets you to open and answer email? For me, the last time that I actually opened and answered an email, it was from a product that I bought that was like $30. I bought it, used it once, never used it again, and I got an email that was very timely, very personalized that said, "Hey John, I noticed you're not using the product. Can you tell us why?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll tell you why." And it was a great email. I got a response that was. It wasn't an automated response. I got a response from the person saying, "Thank you for your feedback. We really appreciate that. We're going to work to make it better. If we made it better, would you consider continuing to use the product?" And I was like, "Yeah," just because they took the time to actually answer that question. Now, at scale, you may not be able to do that, but that was the last thing that made me click through and open a feedback loop email. So what gets y'all to open? Thank y'all for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.